and in the greatest country on earth, next to Israel. It's an honor to be able to make a difference and to be able to speak in this regard with an administration that I love so much and that I feel genuinely represented by. It's a real honor.
Let me show you real quick how a delusional and uncivilized criminal in the White House can look around at his failed policies, on tariffs, lawless deportations, and this big disastrous bill that everyone can see as a detailed robbery, and somehow still go with the narrative that his decision to start a war with Iran is beneficial to the world.
The president has all the authority he needs. Let us stop here and say, thank you, Mr. President, for the flawless decision to carry out a very important strike. What President Trump just did was save American lives, protect American interests, and stand with America's friends and allies in the region. He always has the authority, the constitutional authority, to take care of business for the American people. For those folks in either body who believes differently, it's just hogwash. Let's stand with our president, stand with our country, and let's do the right thing. Let's not make this a Republican or Democrat issue. This is an American issue carried out by the President of the United States on behalf of the American people. This is a great day in America, a truly great day.
His State Department spokesperson, who represents his claim that he was elected to make this country great, can't even push that propaganda without placing Israel above them. And milk dud head-ass Tim Scott can't make an appearance on TV without insulting his ancestors by praising a white supremacist over and over again. Because in dictatorships, the followers have to mimic their omnipotent leader.
We are rocking. The United States is the hottest country, with the exception of your country, I have to say, right? I'm not going to take that on. No, Mohammed, I'm not going to take that on. Wouldn't that be a terrible thing if I made that full statement? But I will not do it. You're hotter.
There's always another country that's better than the country that they tell their idiot followers here at home is the greatest. Tammy Bruce puts Israel above America, just like Trump puts Saudi Arabia and Russia above America. But Senator Scott knows that the lower you are on the bigoted MAGA hierarchy, the more vigorous idolatry is required of you.
All right, let me ask you about politics for just a second. There's a very small but vocal faction within the GOP which seems to want to live comfortably numb between a couple of oceans and friendly neighbors and let the rest of the world fend for itself. I mean, morally or politically, what's the use in being strong and powerful if you don't or won't protect your friends and allies in democracy?
The answer is none. The truth is, this is Donald Trump's Republican Party, and the truth is, from Ronald Reagan to Donald Trump, we've always stood firm with our allies, always stood firm on a policy of peace through strength. Thank God Almighty that 90+% of our party is standing shoulder to shoulder with President Donald J. Trump as he executes flawlessly on behalf of America's future. This is not just about now. This is setting the Iranians back by at least a decade, in my estimation. That means future Americans serving in our military will be safer because nuclear armament not coming to Iran anytime soon. Great news for the American people, better news for those men and women brave enough to serve our nation in uniform. That's the kind of commander-in-chief we really need.
He said those serving in our military will be safer.
Iran is striking a US-run military base in Qatar. The White House accepted that there were credible threats to this airbase, this US-run airbase. Then reports came through from AFP journalists initially of explosions over Doha. This credible threat that was reported a short time ago is to the Al Udeid US-run airbase in Qatar. It's basically the biggest US-run airbase in the Middle East, in the region, and was seen as a likely, logical, potential target for Iran to retaliate against US forces.
We've never been further from reality. once a couple MAGA people recognize that he's the complete opposite, a total fraud on his promises of economic prosperity, the deportation distraction is then launched on a grand scale. And when that policy is discovered to be nothing more than an illegal occupation of an American city, this deadly and extremely costly distraction is now brought up next. And in order to keep the sycophants in line to walk off this cliff, his entire party full of enablers make it their mission to avoid talking about the effects of his terror and only push the propaganda of his excellence. It's fascism.
I mean, what Donald Trump and Israel have done is they have made the world a much safer place. Donald Trump drew a line in the sand, a red line. Iran crossed it, and he made good on his promise. He took out 3 of Iran's nuclear facilities. They were very close to having a nuclear warhead. I know this. I've been briefed along with a lot of other members. But he did the right thing, and we learned last night, like we learned with Soleimani, Donald Trump doesn't make threats. He makes promises, and he made good on his promise last night, and we are all safer for it. We can say thank you to President Trump for his endeavors last night, and our military and our pilots and everyone who was part of that operation last night.
Nancy Mace wants you to thank the guy that she's attached her and her political ambitions to for disrupting your life, who has sent the families of American servicemen and women in a panic over the potential results of his ego-driven war. A war that he helped start after literally bragging that he ran on being an anti-war president that negotiates away deadly conflicts. Like the one between Russia and Ukraine that's still a conflict and still deadly.
Now, at least 7 people have been killed and several injured in an overnight Russian missile and drone attack in the Kyiv region. At least 6 of those who died were in a high-rise building in the capital. Kyiv's mayor, Vitaly Klitschko, said, adding that 19 others were injured in the city.
Oh, and speaking of Russia, the deputy head of Vladimir Putin's Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, posted that he believes some countries may be willing to supply Iran with nuclear weapons in response, which, of course, the dumbest president in history never considered. And not only that, but the Iranian foreign minister announced that he's meeting with Trump's daddy, Vladimir, to cook up some sort of response to the aggression.
Well, I'm going to Moscow this afternoon, and I have a meeting with President Putin tomorrow morning. Russia is a friend of Iran, and we enjoy a strategic partnership, and we always consult with each other and coordinate our positions. The warmongering and lawless administration in Washington is solely and fully responsible for the dangerous consequences and far-reaching implications of its act of aggression. Of course, the door for diplomacy should be always keep open, but this is not the case right now. My country has been under attack, under aggression, and we have to respond based on our legitimate right of self-defense. And we will do that as long as needed and necessary. It's irrelevant to ask Iran to return to diplomacy because we were in the middle of diplomacy. We were in the middle of talks with the United States when Israelis blew it up. And again, we were in the middle of talks and negotiation with Europeans, happened only 2 days ago in Geneva, when this time Americans decided to blow it up.
Okay, so the guy that Donald Trump has been too afraid of even forcing negotiations with, Vladimir Putin, is meeting with Iranian leaders in response to Trump following his other ruler, Benjamin Netanyahu's goals of attacking every country in the Middle East until everyone somehow bows to him and gives their land to his chosen people. The intensely stupid thought process that this president has followed hasn't even considered the other ways that Iran may act.
Iran is almost certain to retaliate. Not doing so would make it look even weaker. So what could it target? The US has military bases throughout the Middle East, Qatar, Kuwait, Iraq and Saudi Arabia. Killing Americans might be a priority for Iran to try and drive a wedge between Trump and his MAGA supporters back home, who say America is getting drawn into yet another Middle Eastern war, risking US lives. Iran could attack Americans directly with drones and missiles or use proxies in the Middle East. Hezbollah in Lebanon has been massively degraded by Israel. More likely, Iran would use militias it backs in Iraq or the Houthis based in Yemen, whose truce with the US appears to be in tatters. All that would invite massive retaliation, of course, from America, so Iran might prefer asymmetrical options. In that case, Britain could also be a target. Could all this lead to terror attacks in the UK? In the region, there are two stretches of water to worry about, both strategically vital. The Houthis could threaten shipping in the Red Sea, while Iran could directly target vessels in the Persian Gulf, as they've done before, harassing ships with smaller boats, firing rockets at them and seizing them. Now, if the Gulf goes up in flames, expect a big hit to the global economy and the price of oil too. The Iranians have threatened to shut off the Strait of Hormuz, this choke point through which a third of the world's seaborne oil passes. All this would send shockwaves through the world's financial markets.
So even while tough guys on social media call people that don't want a multinational, economically destructive war that could claim countless lives, they call them a bunch of wussies, their primitive brains never imagined how bad this could get. Because as usual with MAGA, the only qualifications to be in the club are ignorance, blind bigotry, and an incredible ability to throw your life away to co-sign Trump's every move, no matter how hypocritical it may be. So pay attention to what the biggest supporters of this guy are saying now that he's broken yet another promise that they claimed was the reason that they praise him.
Well, what defines a good president for you?
Good. No new wars. No new wars.
At least he hasn't started any new wars.
Remember how I got you no new wars? Maybe you libs should recalibrate. And remember the guy that brought you no new wars.
By the way, when I was president, we had no wars. We had no new wars. We didn't start any. Remember when Hillary said, he'll start wars? Look at his personality. No, I said, my personality will keep us out of wars.
To avoid a war with Iran, he said, we're going to stop supporting you because you're pushing too hard. Israel said they're going to engage in strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. And Tulsi Gabbard told Trump, don't do it. And Trump said, we won't. Tulsi Gabbard was excellent choice. Man, if we got Kamala Harris in there, holy shit.